Well, welcome to another episode of What's Next. This podcast features industry leaders who are doing amazing things in their practices with their clients. And we're excited today to have a recurring guest, Mr. Michael Fischer, President and CEO of Client First Financial. Before I get to Mike, I just want to do a quick commercial. I'm Bill Rambo, one of the founding partners of What's Next for Financial Advisors. We are a full-service coaching and consulting firm. We work nationwide with advisors, teams of advisors, and offices of supervisory jurisdiction, all of whom are looking to, as my good friend Michael Fischer said once to me, climb, not camp. We work with climbers, not campers.
Absolutely.
Anyway. Yeah, absolutely. So let me also recognize the man behind the curtain, Oz, otherwise known as Brandon Kirst, our producer and director. You won't see him, you won't hear him, but he's shepherding and guiding this podcast today as he does with all of our podcasts. So thank you, Brandon. So Michael J. Fischer, Mike.
Yes.
Good to see you again. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Bill. Good to be on your podcast once again. Always find it fun. Yes.
You are the leader in the clubhouse. This is your third appearance, and I imagine, given how good the other ones have been, this will be a great one. A little different topic, really, today. But I imagine this will not be your last one as well. So normally when we do these podcasts, one is either a story to tell, food for the soul. We did that with you, our first one, which was on your personal approach to philanthropy and how it impacts your business practices and what you do with clients, focusing on philanthropy and ultimately their legacy. The second one you did with us was on how to conduct a family meeting. That falls under the category of this is how we do it. And that one was very informative. And as a matter of fact, I've had a couple conversations this week with advisors and referenced that podcast that they should go and check out because of the insight you provided. Today, we're going to take a little different approach. Brandon, we're going to talk all about coaching. And Mike is going to spend, 3 to 4 hours talking about how great it is to work with What's Next and yours truly. Anyway, Mike Fischer, President and CEO of Client First Financial. Once again, welcome to the podcast. Mike, what's going on? What's new with you?
Well, so far, I can't believe it's the end of a midway point of the year.
Yeah.
I've been really gearing up and talking to folks about philanthropic planning, legacy planning, and getting everything in order for when the time comes, being able to pass their legacies on to the next generation or to the stakeholders who mean a lot to them, whether that's a charity, foundation, or what have you. So we're still starting to really pick that up, starting to get traction on that. And it's very amazing how people are embracing that. They all thought about it, but they didn't know how to go about it, which kind of leads into what we're going to be talking about.
It does. And it's there are not a lot of advisors out there that are truly focusing on legacy planning as you are. And so I'm really glad to hear it. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's important for the baby boomer generation and the generations that follow to have a coordinated plan on, how do we carry forward mom and dad's or whoever's wishes? How do we continue to benefit the organizations that they've benefited in their life, if that's important for them to do after they pass? Anyway, today we're talking about coaching, why you work with a coach. So Mike, give us a little background on the business and then lead into how we got started coming up on 14 years ago.
All right. So I was and still am affiliated with a financial advisory firm here in the Lehigh Valley.
Of Pennsylvania.
Of Pennsylvania. Yes, thank you. And around 2009, I wanted to leave the family, so to speak, grow up and go out on my own. And one of the things that I learned from that is I really didn't know how to go about that. So uh, I then started looking for a coach, somebody who could help get me organized so that when I moved out and I was on my own, I wasn't doing it blindly. So I had a coach for a couple of years. That coach got me on the right path, but he was very macro in his approach. I needed somebody to be a little more micro, get down deeper in, understand what my practice was and how could we get it to grow. And at the time I was doing that, were hired on to that same firm to do coaching with all the advisors. And that's how you and I met. And I told you what my story was and what I was trying to do. And from there, I found you to be a lot more what I was looking for, not micromanaged, but going down and really understanding what are you trying to do. And all right, here's a path that we should be looking at. In a lot of ways, Bill, I looked at it like this. I was a golfer and you were my caddy. Which club do I need to use to get me to the green? All right. I know that sounds a little corny, but in a way, that's exactly what I was looking for. I didn't need you to tell me how to swing the club. I needed you to tell me what club to use to get me on there in regulation. Okay.
I love the analogy. I've actually served as Molly Rambo's caddy for years. 2 steps behind and to the right. So I'm used to that. Now I got to interrupt you,
yeah,
Brandon. I just want to tell you that when we had our first conversation at that firm, I had a little closet of an office, and the door had a window, one of those square windows, about 4 or 5 feet up. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting at the desk one day, and all of a sudden, I look over at the window, and there's this guy with just his fingertips and his nose on the frame of the window, and just a little bit ahead. And that was Mike. He was actually hanging off of it. He's a slightly vertically challenged, but anyway. And that was the first conversation. But Mike, well, I guess you did answer why you work with a coach. I think, and I want to go back to something you said as we were leading into this. You actually coach people. You've coached people for years financially with financial planning, and now coaching people on legacy planning. So did that make it easier for you to accept coaching, or what's the connection there?
Well, the connection is this. All right. Yeah, we are. When you're an advisor, in a way, you are somewhat of a coach, because people will come to you and ask you questions like, how much am I going to need to retire? And that's a very broad question to ask. So one of the things is, okay, how much do you need to live on? I've actually started putting people on exercises. I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do over the next 12 months. You're going to line up all of your bills and then make a spreadsheet or get some financial software like a Quicken or something along those lines, and just track it over the next 12 months. You may be surprised, because some months you have bills all the time. I mean, all throughout the year. Others only are like sparingly, like insurance or taxes. So the clients who have gone through that exercise are like, their eyes open wide. It's like, I couldn't believe how much I actually spend, and this is what I need. That exercise, that's a coaching exercise, and it's been very impactful. And then another area that's really been helpful, when people say, should I pay cash to make a major purchase, or should I borrow? And there is no right or wrong answer. So the coaching in that is, okay, what is it that you have in assets? What are the terms of potential loan? And then we coach and say, look, there are reasons why you may want to take out a loan. There are reasons why you may not. So it's coaching them and getting them to understand. And some people, especially when they get into the retirement years, really don't want to have a bill. And I say this to them all the time. I don't like bills either. But what you need is money. So coaching them into understanding that cash flow is a better way to pay for things than taking money out of your nest egg. Again, I'm using 2 broad examples, but ones where coaching has come in to help clients understand. And likewise, in my own practice, why do I need a coach? I don't have all the answers either. So having a coach tell or explain to me, it's like, look, you're trying to get to X at the end here. How are we going to get there? And then having the coach kind of take me down the path has been very, very helpful. And it's allowed me to get to where I am today.
Yeah, and we'll talk about where you were and where you are today, and some of the highlights along the way. But first, Brandon, sometimes as a coach, you have to tell people things they don't want to hear, and you have to help them to see different ways of thinking about things and doing things. One, not an example of that, but one example of something Mike and I did early on is when he decided to go out and establish his own firm and to create a DBA, a name for the firm. He wasn't sure what he should call it. And I said, what are you going to call the firm? And he said, I don't know. You're the genius. What should I call it? And I said, I don't know either, but I know who can tell you. And Mike, what did you end up doing from there with that?
Well, okay. And again, this is where coaching is really important. All right. Bill had suggested to me that when you have your appointments with your clients over the next 2 weeks, ask them why they work with you. So I did that. And I would write down the words and phrases that they mentioned why they work with me. Things like you speak in terms that we can understand. You're willing to explain things over and over again so that, if we don't quite understand what you're saying, you'll explain it to us. You guide us. There's a few things like that, Bill. It's been 14 years, but some of them still resonate with me.
You don't rush us, I remember, was a big one.
You don't rush us, yes. And then when I showed you that list, you looked at it and you said, well, it's obviously you put the client first. And there's where the name came about. And I thought it was a fabulous name because it was true. I always put the client first whenever we're making our decisions. So it was an exercise that was very, very helpful, which leads me to why you need a coach. A coach is going to make you do things that you're not comfortable with. And if you're going to go against that, then don't have a coach. You have to be willing to do what the coach says. That's extremely important because if you're not, don't waste your time. Okay. In our industry, advisors have egos bigger than the United States of America. Right? They all have the answers. Yet, I look at all the most famous athletes in the world. They all had coaches. Michael Phelps. He has 27 Olympic medals. He had a coach. Why would he need a coach? Doesn't he know how to swim? Tiger Woods had coaches, 18 major championships or 14, excuse me. He had a coach. So I look at the successful athletes. I try to put that into my own scenario and then doing what the coach tells me to do. Do I like it all the time? No, but I do it because I'm told to do it.
Well, and I think, Mike, to be fair, it's been much more collaborative. I mean, we agree 95% of the time on things, and you have been willing to get out of your comfort zone here and there. I would like to say I would like to address ego. I have a pretty big ego as well, but I do like to think, and Michael, you could check me on this, that when it comes to your success, I have very little ego. I don't try to front run you. It's not about my ideas. It's about you implementing our ideas, that type of stuff. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, you don't always have to agree with your coach. But it's not supposed to be a constant struggle. There are going to be times where it's like no, and then collaborating with the coach and then coming to a consensus like, okay, then how about if we meet somewhere in the middle and see where that takes us? And we've done that numerous times over the years. It makes sense. And again, that's the beauty of having that sounding board, that collaboration, and just working together on making things better.
And it's I think it's also fair to say that we at What's Next and I take a collaborative approach. You've hired a marketing firm 2.5 years ago. You asked me to be part of the meetings. I think we've worked well together. I've provided ideas, I've provided insight on compliance issues, that type of stuff. And so I think perhaps there are some coaches out there who it has to be their way or the highway. And I think we've made a lot more progress over these 14 years, which is a long time to be working together, honestly, in a coaching relationship. But I think we've made a lot of progress, in part because we have collaborated, and we have collaborated with other people. And once again, put ego aside, if you will, for the greater good of Client First and Mikey Fischer. I just want to touch on again, you were working with a coach. He helped you, no doubt about it. But one of the other things I recall you told me all those years ago was he was not a coach with financial services experience. Is that correct?
No. He was.
Oh, okay.
But he only worked with financial advisors, and he wanted more of the independent channel. But it was more of the sole practitioner, and in a way, I'm a sole practitioner. I have my own firm, but still, attached to my original firm for other services that they provide. But it was more people who didn't know absolutely anything, and he would just give them that macro approach. Well, you should be doing this and this and this, and that was all fine in the beginning because I had nothing to play off of. But then when you started talking, it's like, well, look, I need something a little bit different than what you're telling me. He couldn't really provide me with the answer, and look, he's a great guy. It's just that I got to the point where he couldn't take me any further. And that's what it really came down to. And it was time to make a change.
And I think the other neat thing about this relationship, and it tends to be, and our relationship is the oldest coaching relationship I have. And it's been unbelievably fruitful for all of us, I think. Once again, we'll talk about some of the accomplishments. Certainly, it's helped me to grow my practice, first in my own business, and now as part of What's Next because of your advocacy and the things that you've done to help get the word out. This relationship has touched every aspect of your business. And this is the point at which, Brandon, where I point out the couch on the back right in Mike's office. That's the chair that you sit in.
Yeah, it's over that way. Yeah,
couch is on my the right, and as I'm looking at it, Michael and I actually went out shopping for that furniture 14 years ago or whatever. Mike bought an old barn in town and renovated it. I helped with the design. I helped with the decor, couches, all that other stuff, things that I don't think a coach would normally help with. Mike, it's a beautiful office. Tell us a little bit about the barn and anything else you want to add there as it relates to our relationship.
Well, one of the things when I was looking to go on my own, I didn't want to look like everyone else in our industry. Typically, when you go into a financial advisor's office, there's a TV on. It has CNBC. There's one statue and only one statue. That's the bull and the bear on a coffee table with all these financial magazines. It's kind of sterile. They all look the same. So when I came and looked at the barn, it was in dire need of repair. But the first thing that you see in my barn when you come into it is my ceiling, which is 23 feet up in the air. Everyone is always looking up, and they look up at the ceiling. And in a way, psychologically, I always want my clients looking up. And I know it may sound like hokey, but they look up and I go, wow. I go, that's where we're going to be heading. We're heading up. The other thing you will not find in my office, there are no financial periodicals. There is no TV playing CNBC. Because what I have found is I want to talk to you about what's going on in your life, Mr. and Mrs. Client. I can't control what's going on in the financial world, but I can help you control what's going on in your world. And that's very important. So when you have a couple that comes in, there's always one who's interested in the finances and one who's not. The one who comes in, and if he sees or she sees that CNBC broadcast, they're immediately thinking, oh my God, the markets, the markets, the markets. The other one who has no interest looks at it and goes, I don't even know what this is about. So let's put that aside and let's just talk. All right. Yeah, I'll go over all your things that you have through my office. We'll go over the plan, the investments, the insurances. But I really want to understand what's been going on the last time since we last got together, which is usually every 6 to 12 months, depending on the client. And that's very important. It's more of a let's hear what's up and what changes or adjustments do we need to make.
Yeah,
And the
excuse me.
barn helps with that.
It sets the tone.
Everyone down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's another highlight of your coaching approach, which is you do meet with people multiple times a year if they want. You do not rush those meetings. You do take care of whatever business needs to be taken care of, but you spend a lot of time just, connecting, reconnecting, diving deeper into what's going on with them as people. I've sat in some of those meetings. I've seen that. I mean, they love spending that time with you. I think most of them would sack out on that couch, my old office back there, if they had the opportunity. So that's another highlight of your approach. And I think while, we all can get perturbed when people don't do or think what we want, but you seem to be extremely patient with people, and it shows in your approach to communicating with them.
Absolutely. You're always going to have clients who are going to be a little more difficult to deal with, but I'm okay with that. That's all right. Let's work through it. And ultimately, the client is the boss. And if they say, I want to do it this way, that's okay. All right. I'm just giving you the options. I've discussed it with you, and you came to a conclusion after our conversation. Isn't that what coaching is all about? You have to come to your own decision. I can guide you. I can suggest, but I'm not going to do it for you. You have to ultimately agree that what we're doing makes a lot of sense to your situation. And that's fine. I've actually had people say, I'm sorry I'm being so difficult. And I'm like, you're not being difficult. You're being honest. So let's just talk about it. You don't have to agree with what I say. I don't have to agree with what you're saying. But let's come to a consensus on how we're going to help you.
And my approach has always been, okay, as long as we discuss it and we discuss the options, it's your business. I always remind people that, they'll say, well, I don't know if I want to do that. And I'll say, well, let me ask you a question. Whose business is it? And they'll look at me and they'll say, mine. And I'll say, yes. And so you get to make those decisions, which is, the way it should be. So what would you say have been some of the highlights of our time working together, Michael?
A couple things. First, we went into a contest at our former broker dealer. It was called Practice of the Year. And that's where advisors threw their hat in the ring and had to say, I have the best practice in the country. And it was put on by Fidelity Investments. They hired an outside firm from Australia.
Business Health. I don't have a problem using their name. They're good friends.
Health, yes.
Business Health.
And they would come in and look at all aspects of your practice. So our first collaboration, well, actually, this was our second. Our first one was getting the barn up and running and all that. But the second one was, okay, let's show them that we really know what we're doing. And that exercise was like, wow. I mean, it really opened both of our eyes, I feel, Bill, in that we had to look at things from back office support that my office provides, customer service upfront. What do you do? What are your systems that you have in place from A to Z, from when somebody walks in the door for the first time all the way to the follow-up? And one of the things that we decided to do was document everything. I think we were the first practice that went into this contest and had everything thoroughly documented. Now, we went into it 2 years. Our first year, we lost. We came in, I think, second. So instead of moping and crying, "Why? Oh, woe is me, woe is me," we actually called the judges in Australia. So that was a very interesting timing zone frame there. But we got a hold of them. They said, "Why did you? Why did we come in second? What did we do wrong?" And they told us, and we addressed it, and we did the whole thing all over again the following year, and it was a lot of work. But in that second year, we actually won, and
But
it was fabulous.
and just a couple points. Number one, yes, it's partially about winning the award, and there was prize money, right?
Yes.
And how many times over the last 13, 12 years since you won have we spent that $15,000? We spent like 10% of it that night that you found
Yeah,
out before
yeah.
you even had it, celebrating, I think, with the team. But it wasn't just about winning the award. The
No.
things that they were monitoring, measuring, were things that make the practice that much more successful, that much more efficient, that much more productive and profitable. And I want to point out as well that, as I recall, there'd usually be about 60 or so practices, and they tended to be the more successful practices in the broker dealer. But it was not about who produces the most business.
No, not at all. I mean, we were competing against firms that are in Boston, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I mean, they were all over the place, Dallas. And here I am in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, in a little town called Fogelsville, and we were able to put our get our systems in place. And a byproduct of that is our firm went from here up to here. I mean, we more than quadrupled not only our business, our clients, repeat business, referrals, because of the systems that we have in place. And those are still working to this day. We still have these systems in place. If it ain't broke, why fix it? We've tweaked it over the time just to keep up with the changes that are going on with technology and things like that. But that was very fulfilling. And that's what the coaching we both learned, but we both had to coach each other. I would say, Bill, here's
That's
what
fair.
we have to do.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And I call that our second one. Our first one was just trying to get client first up and running. And we kind of knew what we were doing. You guided us. We got things up and running, but it just got a lot better going through that practice,
Yep. And you did mention this in passing, but the fact that your production, your revenue, and your profit quadrupled in just a couple of years.
Yep.
It didn't take long. It didn't take long to break 1 million in production, which is kind of a benchmark that a lot of people focus on. I think that's important as well, because very often coaches say, well, I've got good systems and all this. Can you help me, can you help me grow my top and bottom lines? And I think that we did, working together, a very good job of that. We also got to talk nationally at a conference, which was fun. We had a good time with that. We talked about how we interacted. One of the things that was a highlight, now we don't do it as much anymore because I'm virtual. I'm in Rhode Island and Michael's in, as he said, Fogelsville, which is right outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. But talk about our Friday meetings, Michael, and how we collaborated there.
And a lot of people don't even believe that we did this, but it worked out very well. There's a hotel bar, Fogelsville Hotel. It's 1 block over. Bill and I would meet every Friday there. We would work for an hour and a half, have lunch. And then it was Friday. So it was happy hour. And guess what? We still had a lot of good ideas that came out of those conversations after we basically closed the books and say, okay, let's talk about everything and anything. And then we took it on the road and we would start visiting other places around the area, which made it fun and interesting. Coaching doesn't all have to be about let's just talk about the coach. Let's have some fun as well, and that really helped expand our thinking about how we're going to make things better.
And you can go to Michael's website, first, 1stfinancial.com, client 1stfinancial.com. And on the video page, you can actually find the professionally produced video, Practice of the Year video, that was also part of the award for winning the contest, Practice of the Year contest. And they decided they wanted to film us down at the hotel, having lunch and having a beer and discussing things. Mike, I can't recall. It seems to just be surrounding my memory and my mind. What was the question we'd ask ourselves, each other, at the end of those meetings? What was it?
What's next?
What's next? That's right. That's where the name came from. Now, each one of my partners, my wife, and the other guys' wives, everybody takes credit for coming up with that name. I don't think Brandon has, but he probably will, even though there's proof now. But Mike Fischer is where that name came from. What's next for financial advisors? And I thank you for that. We love that name, Michael. If you want to make it about us and me or just generic, what are some of the challenges of working with a coach? What are some of the challenges working with me? Because I'm certainly far from perfect.
I think I said this earlier. You're not always going to agree. And it's okay to say, no, I'm not doing that. But you can't buck the system all the time. There are going to be times where it just doesn't feel right. So there's that's one challenge that we run into, but not often. And any coach will tell you, from little league, professional to this year, there's always going to be players or people that you're working with that are just going to say, I don't agree with what you're telling me, and that's okay. But that every now and then that comes up. You work through it though, and look, if you have a constant conflict, then that coach isn't right for you, okay? That advisor isn't right for you, okay?
That client isn't right for you. That
client isn't right for you. I mean, it is a two-way street. So we don't have it that often, but that is a challenge. And every now and then, when we were here both in the Valley, it was easier for us to, get together face-to-face. Now, with the advent of COVID, the Zooming makes that easier. All right, because we can see each other. Maybe I'm from an old school. I like to see who I'm talking to from time to time. But again, with the technology that was forced upon us because of that, the COVID stuff, we have seemed to overcome that, and that's not a problem anymore. So that's the basics of it, Bill.
And I'm still down there 4 times a year. We host board of directors meeting 3 times a year, which is a neat thing that maybe we'll do a podcast on some of that that you have done, 11 years ago, I think it started.
Yeah, something like that.
Actually pay people to be on your board of directors to share their business insights. And it's been tremendous, a tremendous developmental aspect of your business. It's also helped that thing take off. And then we do a day and a half usually of firm development, offsite retreat type stuff with an agenda. Everybody participates. We bring in outside speakers and stakeholders like the marketing firm, Social T Marketing, the ladies. So we still do get to see each other, but not nearly as often as it used to be. All right, so this is the part that Brandon and I have been really waiting for with bated breath. So what's it like to work with me?
With Bill? Bill Rambo?
Yes, the one and only.
All right, so Bill uses a language that I don't really use. His vocabulary is a lot better than mine. And sometimes he'll say things. He goes, here's how you should approach this. And I'm like, I'm not going to even try to pronounce half the words that you're saying. I don't even know what they mean, and I can't pronounce them. But that's a minor thing. So working with Bill, he'll discuss things with you. He will put things in front of you and say, okay, here's your task. You need to get it done. And then the next time you get together, If it's done, all right, let's move on to the next stage. If it hasn't been done, then that's a problem. Okay. And I've always been one that if it hasn't been done, why wasn't it done? But for the most part, when I'm told to do something, I do everything possible. And that's what's kept our relationship going for so long. So if you want to work with someone who is going to help you grow, you got to do what they tell you to do. You got to do what Bill tells you to do. You don't have to necessarily agree with it, but you got to do what he tells you to do. All right.
That's right, Brandon. Keep that in mind.
And again, there are reasons sometimes where you can't do it, but don't make it an excuse every time. Okay. I mean, it can't always be, well, the dog ate my homework. All right. Okay. Maybe one time. If not, if you keep hearing that over and over again, then let the dog out and do your homework in a different room, So that's the one thing I would say, Bill,
I thank you for that. Our relationship. I mean, I have touched every part of that business. I think one of the other things. This is me, not so much tooting, but suggesting a core value of mine that is also one at the core of what's next. Is we regularly roll up our sleeves and actually help do the work. I've helped interview people for you. I continue to write things. For press releases and website and blogs and the ladies at Social T will go over it and pretty it up a little more, maybe take out some of those big words. Actually, Brandon, most of them weren't even real words. So I was just messing with them. I didn't. It just. So,
but see, Bill, what comes with that is knowing each other. We know, if I say, look, I need help with this blog or this article or whatever, you understand what we're trying to do. And that's part of the relationship that has grown over the years. So you don't get that initially because you don't really know each other, but that's how you grow as a partnership. And that has been very, very helpful as well.
And that's why how has the relationship evolved? First of all, we've become very dear friends. Said this on every podcast. We'll continue to. Michael has become such a good friend that we asked him, Molly and I, coming up on 9 years ago, to get ordained and marry us in the backyard in beautiful Narragansett, Rhode Island, and he did a wonderful job.
Thanks. Nobody else has asked me to do that, though. It's kind of a shame, I'm wasting my talent.
I just conducted my third this past weekend, and real quick, it was at the beach club down the street. Since it's the town beach, it's a public beach, and we were out on the deck. It was raining, but we were under a tent. And right in the middle of the ceremony, the public address announcer comes on asking everybody to get out of the water because of the weather. So I had to pause right in the middle while the voice of God intervened in the ceremony. But it went off without any other hitches, and they are successfully married. Mike, what's next for this relationship? What's next in our coaching relationship?
Well, when I decided to go into this next phase, I mean, we pretty much have everything set. So it's like, all right, so what are we going to do next to make us an even better organization? And there's where we discussed the philanthropic planning. We started doing that like 3 years ago, legacy planning, philanthropic, and it's now evolving. And we still have a long way to go to really, really make that top notch. And we're getting there. And we're taking our time with it. We're not just going to be a flash in the pan with that. We're going to do it right. We're going to learn. We're reaching out to others in the community to get guidance. And what the goal here is for us to be the place to go to if you have the philanthropic or legacy planning. You need it. We'll be the firm that can provide it in a different way than what you've been accustomed to hearing from others in the financial services arena. So that's our next step. And again, we're still working on it. We're starting to get some traction, and I'm looking forward to that next step where we're being asked to speak about certain topics, and because people look at us as the experts in legacy planning. And it's not just about wills and trusts. It's what do you want? What are your needs, wants, and wishes? How does it fall into line with your plan? And then the solutions will come from that. All right. And I said needs, wants, and wishes. It's really principal, values, and beliefs. That's a little bit different. Principal, values, and beliefs. So it's very important that people start square one and move. And we're working on that. And that's our next big thing, Bill.
And you are actually now getting out and speaking to some civic organizations about legacy planning and principal beliefs and how to apply them after you've passed through the legacy planning. And as I mentioned early on, you are quite philanthropic yourself in terms of donating and serve not just money, but time, serving on boards and things of that sort.
I want to understand the whole aspect of the philanthropic legacy planning world. And that means, all right, understanding nonprofits, understanding how you can set up things like donor advised funds, trusts, charitable remainder trust, things like that. I need to understand all of that, and I don't need to know it all now. It's evolving, and as time changes, it'll evolve even more and more as people start changing, and it's philosophies of people's attitudes towards legacy. It's not just for the wealthy; it's for all of us, and that's how we're going to evolve, and that's how this thing's really going to take off.
Indeed, it is. Michael, any last thoughts for folks on why to work with a coach, or anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, the financial services world has changed dramatically in the last 36 years. That's how long I've been doing it, almost 37 now. And so you need guidance, and guidance is going to come to you through a coach. And you need to have that sounding board because everyone is different. I remember, Bill, when we first started working together, people say, well, what does Rambo do for you? And I would tell them, this is what he does. And then they would say, well, I don't need help in that area. It's like, all right. So I stopped telling people what you do. I go, let me ask you this. What do you need help in? You tell me what you need. That's what he's going to help you do. All right. Because everyone's different. And that's why having a coach, it's not the same solutions for everyone. And that's what's important about that. Likewise, even coaching my clients, it's not the same solution for everyone. But here's what they say, my clients. This is why I get referrals. He always stays in touch with us. All right? Okay. Yeah. And that's what's most important. Stay in touch and focus on the things that we need help with today. And that's going to change over time.
And I think another thing is because of the relationship we developed early, because of my background in organizations I had built, in your acumen as a business owner. I always tell people you, to me, are the best example of a business owner whose business just happens to be in the financial services industry. We did some stuff that nobody was doing. I mean, we were doing videos 12 years ago. I always found it very energizing, but also humorous, Brandon. We would always we'd want to do things. We'd have ideas. We'd kind of work it around, and we'd want to make sure we were being compliant. So we'd go to the broker-dealer compliance office and say, we have this idea and we want to try to do it. What do you think? And by the way, can you put us in touch with somebody else who is doing it so we can see their experience? And the answer was what to that, Mike?
No one else is doing it.
Just doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do it, and then we'll let you know how we did it. And you can tell everybody else. So we were rather avant-garde back then. Well, once again, you can find Michael at Client First, 1ST, clientfirstfinancial.com. If you'd like to follow up with him about his coaching, legacy planning, philanthropic planning, these are all things that Michael does well. You can also check out that 10-minute practice of the year video It was quite well done. I actually helped to produce and direct that, as I recall. When the guys were there, we had a great time with them. And Mike, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I want to thank you for, the kind words and the honest words and the promotion, because I think it's important for people to get the coaching they need and the type of coaching that works best for them. So helping people to understand our approach, my approach, I think is very helpful. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time.
Always enjoy being on the podcast. So, we help each other out. And that's part of our 14-year history. It's worked. It continues to work. And that's very important for people to understand.
And we've had a heck of a lot of fun.
And my gosh. And some of it we even remember.
Yes. And some of it we should forget.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, listen, that's our episode for today. Why I work with a coach with Michael J. Fischer of Client First Financial. I want to thank Mike for his time. I want to thank the man behind the scenes, Brandon Kirst, who produces and directs this and does such an excellent job. I'm Bill Rambo, one of the founding partners of What's Next for Financial Advisors. And if you'd like to forge a long-term beneficial relationship that can help your business climb instead of perhaps camp, then I would encourage you to check us out at what'snext.coach. And I would also encourage you, as I always do, every once in a while, it's not a bad idea to sit still and think about what's next. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, folks.